This video is brought to you by Sporlan, quality, integrity, and tradition.
We've got a makeup air unit here today. This one's manufactured by Captive Air. And while doing a filter change for them, we noticed that there was excessive amounts of water inside this unit. So the way that this unit works is it's an evaporative cooler, okay? You've got a cooling media. This is called cell deck media, which essentially is just paper. It's a paper material that absorbs moisture, and then as the air runs across it, it evaporates the moisture. If it's working right, cools the air. The problem with doing this is this adds humidity to the building, right? Because this is evaporative cooling. So it makes it a little bit humid, but in certain climates it works fine. So while doing the routine filter change, I noticed that there was a lot of water, right? And so this particular unit is not a traditional evaporative cooler. So normally when you have something, some might call it a swamp cooler. A swamp cooler has a reservoir in the bottom with a water pump that circulates that water back up on top of a cooling media, a cooling pad, and then it runs it down where it evaporates the moisture, cools the air, runs it inside. This one does not rely on a reservoir of water. This one has a temperature controller and a timer assembly. When adjusted correctly, the timer assembly, you've got different dials on here, and what they do is they change the amount of time at which it sprays water, okay? So what we have is we have a water solenoid valve down here. That water solenoid valve is energized in conjunction with this temperature controller and this timer. When we meet the outdoor ambient temperature that we need or that we desire to have, cooling on, then this sends power to the timer, and then the timer then says, hey, according to the settings that you set it for, we need to spray this water for 30 seconds, then turn it off for 5 minutes, then spray it for 30 seconds, or however you have it set up, okay? So we can control the interval of spraying the water, and we can control the length of time at which it sprays water. But with that being said, this unit, this makeup air unit with the cooling media should never have standing water in it, okay? Because it doesn't use a water pump, it doesn't have a reservoir, it uses this water solenoid valve. And if it's adjusted correctly, you really shouldn't be getting a lot of water down in the bottom of the unit, because the water should be spraying across the top, evaporating, and then having barely any water coming down to the bottom. There is a drain on this unit. If we look under here, we typically have a drain and it's plumbed in, but you really shouldn't, like I said, be having standing water in these things if they're adjusted correctly. Now, you can also run into some problems because you can adjust it for the summertime, but then right now it's really cool outside. That's where the temperature controller comes into play. It really shouldn't be turning on right now. Bottom line, this is wrong. We should not have water standing in here, and we need to dive into why there's water standing in here. The next thing that we need to look into is the cooling pads, right? If I look at these cooling pads and I touch them, they disintegrate. That shouldn't be happening. Okay, now it's paper, so yes, when it's saturated, it'll break up, but it shouldn't be breaking up this bad, okay? This cell deck media is no good. We need, at a minimum, to replace the cell deck media, but here's the real issue. We can't pull it out because this is saturated with water. It's 10 times heavier than it is if it didn't have any water on it. And if we do get it out, it's gonna be a ridiculous nightmare to get it back in because it is heavy, okay? Maybe. I got a second person, so we might be able to get it out, but you need to be very careful about this kind of stuff because when pulling these things out, they can be surprisingly heavy, okay? So since I have a second person, I think we can possibly get this out. We're gonna gauge it right now and see. Gotta be careful. We do have a rubber TPO roof. We don't wanna damage that, but this is saturated, okay? So we're gonna work on getting that out if we can, and then we're gonna investigate the sprayers, and we're gonna try to figure out why this thing is so full of water. So is it a timer adjustment? Is there something wrong? I mean, according to this, it shouldn't be turning on cooling until 90 degrees. So we need to dig into this to figure out why we're spraying water. The next thing, because we look at big picture stuff, is we come over here and we look at the belts. I mean, clearly too, if you look, this has been saturated for a long time. Look at, there's no way to get water over here. This is a completely separate section over here. okay? There's no connection besides this opening. There's a lip, so in theory, this water should stay on this side. But it's because there's so much moisture, it's condensating on the walls and running down. You can see the water damage on the side. Like, this thing's been getting wet for a long time. Look at this motor. This motor's covered in calcium. Like, this thing has been doing whatever it's doing for a very long time. I'm surprised there's not more damage. But we're just kind of looking big here. Belts are nice and snug. This is off, we verified it. But this pulley is not grooved right. There's something wrong with that pulley. If I go in there, it's like in really bad shape. It's hard for you guys to see it, but when you stick your finger in there, I was just explaining it to the person that's working with me, you want it to be flat. Right now, there's a ripple in that thing. What it looks like right now, hold on, I'll draw another image. Forgive my crude drawing, but I mean, that's what I feel when I stick my finger in this pulley. It is really rippled out. It is not a nice triangle shape like it should be, okay? That pulley is worn down. Now, why do pulleys wear down? In my experience, in my opinion, it's because when you run loose belts for a very long time, the loose belts cause it to heat up and it causes it to wear down the pulleys. That's my personal opinion. I've never read it in a book or anything like that. I've just noticed that when you have loose belts a lot, you tend to have pulleys get worn out a lot, okay? Now, I know there's a lot of people out there that are gonna say, yeah, but that pulley should never be there. Once you set the pulley and you find out what size you need, you should take that off and put a fixed pulley on there. That sounds great. Nobody ever does that. I'm sorry, okay? It just doesn't happen. So because too many customers try to change things to their buildings, they adjust air balance, we'll just go back with the same pulley. So, but regardless, that's one thing. The pulley's bad, but we still need to dig into this a little bit more. So we're gonna try to get this out, but like I said, you need to be very cautious because these cell deck medias can be ridiculously heavy and it can surprise someone if they try to do it by themselves, especially with a rubber roof. You pull this out and boom, it drops down and causes a problem. Got to be very, very careful. Because I had two people, we were able to get this out. So you can see that we have calcium buildup, which, you know, you can rinse that off. But if you look at this, this has like mold buildup in it. Like, this media is just done. Like, it's ruined. This is ruined. The cell deck media needs to be replaced. So there's no questions about that. We need a new cell deck pad. It comes as a whole assembly with the metal frame and everything. If you order it from Captive Air, it's super easy. If you don't order it from Captive Air, you're gonna have to cut the cell deck, whatever. You're better off just ordering it from Captive Air because it'll come with the whole assembly. So when we look in here, you can see, but look over here, you got sprayers all on the sides and on the top. So oftentimes on these things, these sprayers have to be taken apart and cleaned and or replaced. Now the cool thing is when you, just from experience, when you call Captive Air, you just tell them that you need the red nozzles. You tell them how many. You tell them you need the black nozzles for the top, how many you need. But you can also try to clean them. These things though, you got to be careful because, let's see, I can't get this one off, but, oh yeah, I can. When you pull them off, they actually have a screen inside of them. So you can attempt to clean them. I've done it, but most of the time you're not very lucky with that. So that's just the standing water that's in there. But so there's a mesh screen on the backside that usually gets plugged up, and then there's also a orifice in the middle. So you're better off just replacing these, but that is just gummed up with like calcium and mud inside there. So it's highly unlikely that these sprayers are even working, if they're working a little bit maybe. So I'll put this back in, and we need to dive into why we're spraying water right now. So we need to get into the electrical, see if the temp control's calling, what's going on with the solenoid valve right here, and figure that out. So just to reiterate, this thing works when the temperature controller calls, the timer kicks on, it knows how long to spray and the interval between sprays, and then this is what is energized by the timer. Temperature controller says call, timer takes over, opens the solenoid, closes the solenoid. It's usually not open for any more than a minute, then it shuts off for a minute, 2 minutes, whatever it is, then it opens again. So the water should be on, off when this is working, because it has all these sprayers, and it sprays the mist, gets the cell deck media wet, and then evaporates the moisture, you know, and cools the air. That's the way it should be working, but we need to figure out why this thing is full of so much water. All right, so what we've done is we've identified, I already have a hunch as to what I think is going on here. So we've identified that this is our water solenoid. We're looking for where the wires are going. We're following them up. They're coming up to this little cord, and we see the terminals, this terminal and this terminal. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna energize this guy, and we're gonna see if, actually I'm gonna put this panel on real quick. We're gonna see if this guy turns the water solenoid valve on and if we have the right voltage, okay? So we got that on, here we go. All right. So we're checking to see if we have voltage. We have no voltage at the moment. Now, we have the water shut off. So we're gonna go over and turn on the water and we're gonna see if it starts spraying everywhere. So again, I'm gonna put this on here. We've got no voltage. And let's see. Give it a second. And we're starting to leak water. So let's give it a minute more. My hunch is that this water solenoid valve is stuck open. I'm pretty sure it is. We've got no voltage. So we're gonna give it a second and then we'll see if it starts spraying out water. So this is interesting. We do not have voltage right now, okay? We're not leaking by right now, but intermittently it's getting stuck. So I can simulate it by turning it on. Now we're gonna get a lot of mist, so we don't run this running for very long, but it's misting out of those, right? And I turn it off and it turns on, but every once in a while it stays on. This solenoid, I already know, is leaking by. This solenoid has got an issue. So it's kind of a pain in the butt because it just stopped. It was doing it. When we got here, this guy was spraying out water and it wasn't calling. And then now it's like something stuck inside that guy. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna shut off the water and we're gonna see if we can carefully pull this solenoid apart, hopefully without ruining the diaphragm, and see if maybe there's just calcium stuck inside of it. We got the cover off. This one is fairly new, so it was easy for this to come off. Don't see any issues there, okay? So we got a gasket here. Now we gotta try to get this off carefully without damaging it. Inevitably, we're probably gonna have to change this valve, but if I can pull this apart and just clean the seat or something, we're gonna attempt to. Now, when I took this off though, I did have to drain down the water because this thing pressurized, so it was full of water. So it was spraying out right here when I pulled the cover off. So actually on the back side, there's a union. I just loosened that union and it relieved the pressure. So then it stopped spraying out everywhere. But now we just need to get this off. Okay, there we go. And look at the bottom of this seat. It's actually not that bad. It really isn't, but this, something's going on here. But yeah, something was causing this guy to get stuck. Looking at the back of the seat, I mean, it's not destroyed, it's not full of calcium, but I'm telling you, like, it was getting stuck. It was just bleeding by for no reason when we weren't calling. So something's going on. I think that more than likely, we're gonna keep investigating, but more than likely there's just something here. The other thing is this spring right here, because this spring is what puts the tension to close the valve. Depending on their water pressure too, we need to check their water pressure because this valve right here is only meant to operate within a certain pressure. And if the pressure's too high, that'll mess things up too. So we need to check the water pressure. But the one thing I will say is the spring. This spring could be getting worn out, more than likely is. So we can always, if we have to, temporarily stretch it out, but you gotta be careful because you don't want it to be stretched out so much that the valve never opens up because you'll just burn up a coil and cause something to burn. Those are all things to consider. But so we're gonna assemble this guy, we're gonna wipe it all down, put it back together, then we're gonna have to check water pressure and find out what the maximum water pressure is for this solenoid valve to make sure we're not over pressurizing it, causing it to stay open. All right, this is kind of hard to prove, but what happened is when we turned the water back on, we put it all back together. Everything's good. When we turned the water back on, it started dripping. Not a lot, but it's dripping now. And it wasn't dripping before because I had it drained down completely. So right now, it's leaking by. Let's see if we open this up, if it's leaking by here. Because it's just slightly, but it's leaking by. It's not doing it right. Well, no, it doesn't really look like it's doing it right now. No, it's not. Man, this thing, it's weird. It was literally just doing this, and then by shutting it off and turning it back on, it stopped. But this solenoid was leaking by, so I don't know why. I'm trying to prove that right now. I saw it leaking by because I know when we got here, this thing was full of water, the temp control was off, and it was just, it was just leaking all over the place. But this thing is just being a pain in the butt. Let's see. Yeah, see, right now, it's not leaking out of this one. Just being a pain in the butt. What it is, we also need new metal mesh filters. You can see those things are just worn down. Okay, couple things. This guy, we're testing the timer right now. The temperature controller says it's in the 50s outside. That's pretty accurate. It's a little off, but these things are never perfect. It's probably like 55, 58 outside, somewhere in there. So temp control seems to be working, but I currently have it set way low, so that way it turns on. And we're testing the timer. Now, I didn't adjust the timer at all, but right now we're not running. And then what's gonna happen is it's gonna turn on in a minute. You'll notice when it turns on too, that light turns orange on the solenoid, the coil. Again, another indicator. This thing was pouring water out when I got here, and that light was not on. So I know that the solenoid was stuck. I know it was stuck open. See, now it's on. Now it's gonna stay on for about 18 seconds. I'm holding back the rail just so it sprays right now. It stays on for about 18 seconds, then it turns off for about a minute, minute and a half, then it goes back on for 18 seconds. So the timer is working from what it looks like. There goes, it's off. So it's just the solenoid is getting shut. And judging by the water coming out of there, it's not too much pressure either. I don't have a pressure regulator on there, but that's not too much pressure at all. So yeah, this thing there's something going on. So we need to do a rebuild on this evaporative cooler. So we're gonna put 2 new pulleys, new belts. We're gonna clean all this stuff out. We're gonna try to replace all the spray nozzles, the misters. Then we're gonna rebuild the water solenoid. Now, also in another perfect world, this should be below the roof deck, so that way it prevents it from freezing and getting broken internally. Not really a big concern where we're at with freezing. We really don't have that, so I see them always installed up here, but technically it's supposed to be installed below the roof deck, especially where they have freezing conditions. So, yeah, but I mean, this was set at 90 too when we got here. It was pouring water out like crazy. So yeah, this thing has got a problem. So we're gonna permanently turn off the water for now, and then also metal mesh filters. I forgot about that. So we'll do that too. So that's it on this one. I wrote everything down right there, all my notes of the parts that I need to order, so that way I can appropriately quote it to the customer. Put it all back together. We permanently turned off the water so it won't turn on. This right here, we're not gonna put this back in because this is like nasty, moldy looking stuff in here. And we don't want people breathing that. That's potentially dangerous for people to be breathing with all that water leaking by all the time and causing that problem. So in the meantime, we'll quote new cell deck, the pulleys, like I said, the metal mesh filters, the water solenoid valve. We'll clean up the unit, and then we'll proceed from there. But it's operating for now because they still need the air coming through it. They just don't get the cooling, but we'll get it hopefully approved and repaired before it gets hot outside. Well, we are back. We got all the parts, new cell deck, pulleys, water solenoid, misters. We're gonna rebuild this guy. We roped everything up, so now the next step is to go ahead and shut this guy off. And then we're gonna pull it apart and start getting on the replacement of everything. Where we're gonna start with, we've got metal mesh filters. We've got the old ones pulled out, we got new ones. We're gonna start with this. We're gonna attempt to rebuild this valve rather than replace the whole body, because if we can do that, it'll be super easy. So that's the plan on this one first. So we're gonna pull this guy off right here, 3/8 nuts, I believe, that whole thing, and then we should be able to pull the mechanism out. We'll inspect this one. As long as it's the same, then we'll put the mechanism into that one and hopefully save ourselves a lot of hassle of having to twist that off the brass pipe. As we're taking these valves apart, you wanna be careful, especially if we're trying to rebuild it, that stuff doesn't fall out everywhere. So we're slowly holding it on while we twist off, and they ended up being 11/32. 11/32 is one of the underutilized sockets that we use a lot. So that's why I like that multi-socket adapter thing to have the 11/32. The new ones, they're not shipping them with them. So if you can find the 11/32 one, hold on to it. A lot of motors and stuff use 11/32 nuts for the evaporator fan motors for walk-ins and stuff. All right, and just very slowly pull it apart. Make sure nothing falls out. If it does, pay attention to where it was. Nice and slow. Okay, so we're just bleeding off some water, that's fine. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna open this one up, and then we'll pull the mechanism apart when we open that one up. All right, we got the solenoid mechanism pulled out, already put in. It's really important that that bleed port go through that and be lined right up with that. Okay, then I dropped my spring, so we're gonna put the spring back in, and then we'll put the bell housing over. All right, go ahead and put your screws in. We opted to, theirs was just Phillips over there, but we opted to go back with the ones that were a nut and a Phillips. make it easier for the next guy when they go to torque them, because these things can get calcified on, and a Phillips driver on it sometimes won't get it out, so the 11/32 nut makes it really easy. Now the solenoid coil just has a plug right here, so we chose to, and this is the actual coil itself, so we swapped out the coil and just used the old plug, that because it's already factory wired all the way up to the harness, all the way up there. So we just got to thread this guy into there, then we'll get it put on, a little spring retainer nut, and then we'll move on to the next thing. Now that we got the water solenoid changed out, again, don't know what was going on, but it was intermittently sticking. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to change the misters. The misters are all worn out. You can try cleaning them, but when I show them to you, they're a mess. So what we're going to do is, you don't need heavy tools for this, okay? Just a socket. You should be able to twist them off by hand. Don't over torque them because it's plastic into plastic. And then inside these is a strainer. That strainer gets really plugged up. So technically you could probably soak them in like Lime Away or ice machine cleaner or something, but it's just, they're cheap and easy. We've got a whole set of them, but you got to make sure you get the right ones, because there's black misters for the top that have a different GPM, and there's red misters for the front that have a different GPM. So we want to make sure we get them all lined up. So all we're going to do is get them all pulled out and get the new ones put in. So it's easier to pull them all out and then put them all in at once. That way you don't lose track, because sometimes they could look cleaner than this, and you'll change them and you're like, wait, did I already change that? Because your fingers make it look dirty. So we'll pull all the reds out, then we'll do all the reds back in, then we'll pull all the blacks out and put the blacks back in. So we've got two pulleys that are worn out. They both have grooves and they're not flat anymore in here. We've got a taper lock bushing right here. So we're going to get the taper lock out, and then we'll set the speed. Luckily, when they did the air balance, when they opened the restaurant, we know that this fan should be spinning about 602 RPM. So we can test that with our tachometer when we're done, once it's all tightened up. So first thing we're going to do is get the belts off, and we'll start loosening everything, get some penetrating oil on everything. In fact, I'll get some penetrating oil now. Be careful, don't get it in the bearings. Just let it sit. It'll help while I'm loosening everything up. So I want to show you what I'm doing over here real quick, and then you can jump onto that, okay? So what we're doing is we're pulling these pulleys off. This is a normal adjustable motor pulley, or sheave, some people calls it. This right here is just a fixed pulley, meaning you can't adjust it, you can't close it down and open it up. This is a taper lock bushing. So the way that these work is we're going to loosen that, if I can get it. Yep, we loosen that, and we loosen this. Okay, then we're going to pull the bolt out completely. What it does is it uses compression and it pulls itself in because it's tapered. So then we're going to put it into these holes. Now behind this is a threaded hole in the pulley. Behind this is nothing. So we're going to use the threads in this now to push against the pulley, and it's going to separate it. Spinning it loose. Okay, then we're gonna basically go right here. So what happens is, I'll show you when we take it apart, but this is beveled. So as you tighten it, it compresses the walls of the inside of that pulley and just puts tension. So that way it tightens itself in, because you got a key right there too. So we're gonna do this till it's snug. Okay, I've hit it, it's snug. So then we're going to do this one. I'm just using that to tighten it in. Right. For the most part, you don't really want to use power tools for this, because this stuff breaks really easy. So you're going to go quarter turn, nice and even, okay? Quarter turn. Now, something we got to watch out for Sometimes there's a set screw right here, and there's a set screw going straight down. We need to get that out because that's going to fight us the whole time. So we'll get in here real quick. Get my Allen wrench. Set screw, to be honest with you, is a little irrelevant. It doesn't need to be there, but they do have it there for whatever reason. Let's see if that's the right size. Feels like it's there at least. Find out in a minute. Sometimes they're empty, so you can be chasing a ghost. It's kind of hard to see, but it looked like there was something in there. There it is. So before we put any more tension, because it's pulling on itself, we want to get this out. Couple turns, that way it's not getting in the way, not hitting anything as we're pulling out. That should be good. Now we're going to proceed with this. So quarter turn tight. Oh, look at it, pulled it right off. So that's the whole purpose of that. And then we got to get this key out. In order to get the key out, what you can do, if you have a very good set of dikes, you can grab these dikes and use the leverage right here and pull. Tight, pull. And all that we're doing is pushing on this. Now you are going to have to clean it because it kind of scores up the edges of the key. This is called a key. So it's got little scores in it now for me doing that. So I do have to clean those off, but that's really easy to clean. So make sure you set everything everywhere where it's not going to get messed up. And then we're just going to work on spinning this off. So might have to go get some big pliers, but sometimes what we can do is just grab some of these and go back and forth, maybe. Sometimes. Nope, not gonna work, but that's fine. We'll get a puller on there or something, and we'll pull it off. It'll be easy. Now this, you can use power tools, but you gotta be really careful. Aiming for the center of that shaft. Make sure the set screws are all loose. It looks like it's just gummed on there. So maybe put a little more penetrating oil in there. There's seams in here. Go ahead and get these out real quick. Try this again. Let's make sure there's nothing in there. There isn't. It should be good to go. Should be good. Loose and tight. There's a lot of pressure going on in there. Don't want anything to blow up in your face. It moved a little bit. We're going to keep going. I just don't want to just completely destroy it. But we have a new one, so we're going to get in there a little bit more. Sometimes what you can do too is hit it back on and then clean up under the shaft. Now, I have a new one, so I'm going to just hit this one. So we're just gonna go get a big channel locks and we should be able to twist it off. I'm gonna get some lubricant back behind it though, back here. And then that way, hopefully, it's pushing onto a lubricated shaft and it helps spread some of that stuff off. Try one more time with this, see if it'll come off. And then I'll go get the big channel locks if I have to. Like hitting a lip of some sort right here. There we go. Perfect, got it off. So now we're going to sand this shaft all up nice and good, and then we'll start putting everything back on. We're sanding these shafts, nice even round sanding just like this. And then you can actually use the sandpaper, hold it down tight, and it turns the shaft. And then the other one will go on like butter. This is the taper lock, and the taper lock is not completely round and it has split down the middle, so that way it can compress in there. So when it goes in, if you notice, there's 2 holes on this taper lock bushing that are threaded and 2 that are not. Okay, the threaded holes are for removing the pulleys, because the screw goes in there or the bolt goes in there, it uses the threads and it pushes against itself. The other ones are for tightening. So that's why when I first did it, we took it off and put the screws in the other spot because we were separating. So now we're going to go to the ones that are not threaded, and then they're threaded on the pulley. We're just going to put these in there, nice and good. And then we'll do the same on the other side. Nice and good. And then we can rotate it around. We're not tightening anything yet because we still got to get a key in this shaft. And then we can set the depth. We'll get this pulley on and we'll set them both at the same time to get them nice and even. But for now, we got it started. And then I'm going to clean this up. Now to clean these, the trick is lay it flat and just go back and forth on the sandpaper on all sides, back and forth. And grab a new piece of sandpaper. And every time you do it, you're going to notice it getting shinier and shinier all the way across, and you can clean up the rough edges from you getting with the dice and stuff like that. Okay? Just by just running it on that, like if you find the rough edges and see how it's a little dirty, that's a low spot, but I mean it cleans it up pretty well. And if you still have some big grooves, you can just kind of go at an angle, just kind of sand them down. Same thing goes for the shaft. If the shaft had a scar from a set screw, take a really good piece of sandpaper and just right on that scar, and it'll help. So if you look, is there one on this? There's a scar right there. That round thing, that tiny set screw. That was coming through. So that's not bad though, but like that does happen right there. So. Okay, so that's that. Get all the red, we'll get all the reds out first. Have two set screws, one on the back, one on the front. Sometimes you got to take the whole pulley apart to get the set screws apart. I think I got the set screws off. We're going to see if we can grab this. This puller is a little bit small for what I'm doing, but it might work. I'm tempted. I have a much bigger one if we needed to, but that came off pretty easy. Important thing to understand though is it pulled the key out with it. So there's a keyway in here. It's deep down in there, right there. And that keyway has to come out because that's what holds it in place on this shaft right here. Understand that the RPM, so I mentioned, I don't know if you were earlier, Angel, but the RPMs on this unit are listed right here, 602 fan RPM, so that's right here, 602 RPMs. We're going to try with my tachometer to get that matched up, but it's not precise, okay, because depending on what they use to measure it, it may not be as accurate as mine, or mine might not be, so we just need to get it close to 600 RPMs, give or take. Set screw on this one. That's someone was talking to me. Hearing voices. It's a little tight, so we're going to get some love on this. We're not to get it in the motor. Up a little bit better. Let's grab this one. Now we're gonna set it up. Set the depth. Belt's too tight, so we need to loosen this up to be able to loosen it. We really need to get some new belts, but I don't have them. So probably fix them up today. Take the cover off the other side. Start picking up some messes. Okay, so this set screw right here, there's a set screw on both sides of this. You gotta loosen up this nut. That nut holds this in the bolt in place. So then I loosened it because it wouldn't tighten, it was too tight. So now, you've got it really loosen. You should be able to go on the other side, and it should, and it still needs to be tensioned, but it put the belt on. So we need the belts on, and then once the belts are on, we can adjust the back and forth and make sure that they're perfectly aligned. And And then when we're done, we'll set the tension. So by setting the tension, you loosen this now, run this until it hits this bracket and pushes away from it, right? Then it applies the tension you need. But first and foremost, we want to get some tension like we have, and then we want to align these pulleys and get them all lined up. Now the trick is that as we're doing this taper lock bushing, when we tighten these, it's going to bring it closer. So we need to get it set a little bit in, because as we tighten it, it's going to straighten itself out. So we get it almost perfect to where this side is just a little bit in, and then when we tighten it, it's going to pull this pulley onto that taper lock bushing and like line it up. So kind of a fun little thing. But if you look right here, you can see down here that the laser is putting a line right on the 5s on all 3 of them to tell us that we're pretty close to being lined up. Now, these pulleys might have a slightly different thickness on here, so you can't just use this as a one and done, but this gets you in the ballpark of knowing that we're pretty lined up as far as evenness goes, and we're ready to tighten these down and it'll pull it in just a little bit more. I literally, for the first clip I filmed it, the laser was good. The second or third clip, the battery died. So I need to charge that thing. But we got it lined up where it should be. We're gonna start torquing these down. So as we're setting this, you're gonna go snug, snug, and you're gonna notice that it'll bounce, because you want it to be pulled in evenly. So snug, snug. A little bit at a time, but it's evenly tightened. And you don't want to over tighten, because you can over tighten these. You'll break them off. Sometimes what you can do too is take a dead blow hammer and just give it a couple soft whacks right here, nice and evenly, and that'll do it. We're pretty good. And we'll let it run for a few minutes, and we'll double tighten. This is all on, nice and snug like it's supposed to be. We'll test the RPMs. We tighten these back up so it can't move. You set the depth and the tension, and then you tighten this nut so it binds against this, doesn't allow this to back off or anything. Same on the other side. Nice, good. We'll let it run for a few minutes and double tighten everything. But we're looking really good. We're over here changing all the misters, and then once we get all those changed, we'll slide the cell deck in and set the time and everything on the cell deck timer. That's good. You don't gotta go crazy. We just need it on to reduce the amount of airflow. We're gonna get a lot coming through here, and we don't want it to pull up all the dust and everything. Let's go ahead and drop the metal mesh filters in real quick. Put a little more of a restriction on this thing. Make sure you get the direction correct. We're going into the unit. Yep, just like that. Last one, just like that. Is that the other way? Oh yeah, you got it, there you go. Okay, so this is gonna put a little bit more of a restriction, a little less airflow. Oh, this is what you gotta watch out for. You don't want those to grab onto that because it rips it off. So, okay, new metal mesh filters, nice and good. Now, unfortunately, there's gonna be some dust that blows because we gotta start this up, but it is what it is, okay? Fire this guy up. About 607 RPMs. It's about where it should be. So we're good on that. Kind of sounds like the bearings are dry, so we're probably going to grease these bearings too. I hear a little something in there on both sides, so we're going to get some grease on that. But in the meantime, we're going to shut it down, put this cover back on. Well, actually, now that it's ran for a couple seconds, we'll double tighten on everything. Then we'll grease up the bearings, put the cover on, and then we'll test the spray rails and all that stuff. Okay, so we just tested the misters. We're waiting for them to turn back on right now. So I just ramped the control way low. We got the water turned back on, and we're just looking to make sure we don't got any big leaks. And you want to see mist coming out of every sprayer. And then on top of that, this has a timer. So the timer, you adjust how long it sprays for, and then the between when it turns off and turns back on. So here in another couple seconds, this guy should turn on. There it goes. And it's gonna spray for, I don't know, 20, 30 seconds, and then it's gonna shut off. And then it's just gonna keep repeating that. Very interesting though, you can see the light coming through and it's reflected. It looks like a leak, a light ray coming down. But here in a second, it should turn off. We don't wanna run it like this too long because we're pulling moisture into that motor. And there it goes, it just shut off. So it's just on, off, determined on this guy right here. So we set it for typically about 80 degrees. So anything above 80, it's gonna turn those things on and then spray that mist for them. As far as the cell deck, this is the bottom. So you want that to have its drain holes. So then the top is completely open. So that way the water runs down, absorbs into the paper wicks the water, and then the warm air runs across it, it evaporates the water, cools down the air. Adds humidity, but that's how it works. So go ahead and slide that guy into there. It's gonna be kind of tricky. Nice and slow. Make sure not to catch the edges when you're pushing. There you go. And then now, there you go. That's perfect. So we'll wait for it to turn back on. The water will spray across again, and then we're looking good. And then we're gonna go get some spare belts for this guy and some grease to grease up those bearings. We'll wait for it to turn on again. Should turn on any second. As we're waiting, you can also tell when it turns on because the light on this turns on. This one has a light in it, and it's really nice because it lights up orange to let you know when it's spraying. I don't think I'm gonna need to adjust the timer. I like how much it's spraying. We're not in a crazy hot climate, so I think it's pretty good what it's doing. So we'll just wait for it to kick back on here in a sec. And as soon as our light turns on, we'll just make sure the water's running across this the way it should be, and we'll be good to go. There it goes. Water's spraying across, all up in here. So we're good to go. Water's gonna start running down. It takes a little while for it to get the coil or the cell deck all nice and wet, but that's the whole theory of it. It works as a wicking material. The water runs down, it absorbs into the paper material that makes up that cardboard corrugated crap, and then the air runs across that and evaporates. Another thing to understand too, whenever you put new cell deck in, it's gonna smell downstairs. For about 3 to 4 days, they're gonna get like a chemically glue smell because this is all glued together. That's just part of the process. They just gotta deal with it for a couple days and then it'll go away. It's just VOCs coming off the glues and things. So it's not the greatest thing, but we are in a kitchen. They've got giant exhaust fans pulling everything out, so we should be good to go. Okay, we ended up getting all new belts. I was gonna get just spares, but then I decided, you know what, we're gonna put new belts on this thing because we just did all this work. So the way that we're gonna do this is, let's see one of these belts. Okay, so we've got 2 new belts here. What we're gonna do is you're gonna put it on the inside pulley. Well, this one is because it's a little stretched. I loosened everything up, right? So we're gonna do the inside one like that. And then what we're gonna do, it's loose, so when we do this, it's gonna flex. Now I'm gonna have someone else do this, but you put it on the small one first, then you put it on the big one. But all we gotta do is pull that in, and then we put the tension on, okay? So we're gonna go ahead and do that real quick. So go ahead and grab that. I'll pull this back. Nice and good, and then go ahead and do your other one too. There you go. So now they're too loose, show the slack. Okay, way too loose. So now we're gonna tighten these things out right here using these, set the depth, get the tension all right, and do it on both sides, and then we're gonna grease the bearings. So this guy has pillow block bearings with a Zerk fitting. You guys can't really see it, but it's right there. So we grease the bearings on both sides. We're gonna turn this guy on. Sounds a little bit better. I still have a little bit of a bearing sound. We might have some bearings going out in this thing, but we'll keep an eye on it. We greased them up. Let's see what that does, and we'll monitor it next time we come out. But we got spare belts up there, 2 of them, and then we got these ones all nice and tensioned. It's moving the air. We already checked the RPMs. We already double checked the tightness. Everything looks good. So now we're just ready for the misters to start up, and this unit's about done. We're gonna clean up our messes. And if you look in here, you typically don't wanna see a lot of water dripping out of here. Sometimes that can mean that it's not hot enough. I think I have this actually set a little low. We're gonna turn it back to about 80. But You want it to take the air. You don't want a lot of water sitting in the bottom. You'll see a little bit once the coil gets, or the cell deck gets all loaded up like this, but it's all wet, and then now the air is coming across it and it's allowed to draw that air in. So moving air through, that looks good. Now I'm not feeling a lot of air coming through here though. So we need to go downstairs, make sure we're getting air delivered. Everything looks good, but we got to make sure there's not a damper closed or something. Then we come over here. Why don't you go ahead and put that on? I want to see it move some air through this thing. We're going to put the cover on and I want to feel the air moving through. It's interesting, I'm not feeling a lot of air moving through here. So we need to go make sure that there's not a damper closed or something. Because I feel like something's a little odd. Like this should be moving some more air. Usually you can feel it moving through. This is why it had no air movement. These things are plugged. So we pulled the screens down. We're gonna get these cleaned as best as possible. It's lack of maintenance. These things need to be cleaned on a regular basis. It's out on their back dock, they got hot water, so this is perfect. So that's a cleaned screen right here. Now we're on to the next one. The problem is they're cooking, so we gotta be really careful. And that's what it looks like. They've got turning vanes up there without it. So we're doing these ones at the moment. Okay, we got all the screens put back up and you can actually feel air moving through this. So it just goes to show you, that wasn't part of our plan, cleaning those screens down there. That was not it. But when I turned it on, I didn't feel suction putting the doors on. Like it just felt like the air was going nowhere. And so I knew something was up. So I went down to look for a damper and found that the screens were all plugged up solid. So we cleaned them all. Now we're moving air. We can actually feel the air going through the makeup air unit now. So customer's gonna be stoked. Should help out a little bit in their kitchen too. So that's it for this one.
All right, well, we took you through the process of rebuilding the makeup air unit. So we put new cell deck pads, new pulleys, new belts. We rebuilt the water solenoid valve, new metal mesh filters, and we cleaned the outlet screens. So that's really important. When I was all done and I was putting the unit back on, you got to use your senses and you got to have situational awareness. I noticed something. There was no suction on those doors when I went to go put them on. And that suction is because, or the lack of suction was because the outlet screens downstairs were plugged up. So it was trying to push the air back down into the building to give them makeup air, but they were so dirty that it wasn't allowing the air to come back in. So we went through everything that we could. I found that the water solenoid intermittently was getting stuck. I didn't catch it on camera, but there was 2 occasions that I was there doing something else, and I'd been telling the customer that water solenoid is sticking because there was just water everywhere in the unit. But I will say that the plugged up outlet screens on the diffusers downstairs also is going to add to a lot of moisture inside that unit, because if they're not drawing air across it and it's still spraying in the same increments, that's going to cause a lot of excess moisture too. But clearly this unit needed a solid rebuild on it. Okay, so I took my apprentice through this, or one of my apprentices. We're actually we have 2 apprentices right now, but we try to explain everything as we're going through the process, let them observe, let them get their hands dirty, let them work. And that's what it was. So everything is working as best as possible on that unit. Now, something really important. As I went through everything, I think I did a pretty good job explaining things. There was a few things like I wish the camera had panned out a little bit more when I was sanding the key for the shaft, because you can't really see what I'm doing, but it is what it is. Just lay down a piece of sandpaper flat and move the key back and forth on the sandpaper, just holding your fingernails above it. Just rotating it, moving it, and that's how you clean those keys on those things. I can't stress enough situational awareness, and don't just be oblivious to things. So when I was putting those doors back on, I knew something was wrong, and so we dug deeper and we found that, yeah, the outlet screens were plugged up. So don't let that go. Like, say something, even if it's not part of your quote. Call the office, say, hey, you know what? I just realized the inlet or the outlet screens are completely plugged on this. Something's going on. But another interesting thing, I don't know if anybody caught it, we were working on that unit while the restaurant was operational. They were cooking downstairs in the building. Excuse me, I'm going to yawn right now. Oh, I'm tired. It's been a long couple weeks, months, year. It's been a long year, and we're only 5 months in. It's exhausting. On top of that, on a side note, going off on a rant, my oldest daughter is moving out. So it's been an emotional roller coaster for my wife, myself, and the whole family, just getting ready for all the life happenings to move forward. You know what I'm saying? So anyways, it's been exhausting. If you've noticed that I've looked tired in these videos, that's why. I'm just long days, you know, it is what it is. I'm fine. It's all good. Anyways, back to the video. So think big and don't just walk away from a problem. When I went to go put the door back on, when I was all said and done, it just didn't feel right. I stopped. I thought about it. I went downstairs, found the inlet screens or outlet screens were plugged up. But like I said a second ago, the restaurant was operational the entire time. And why that is so detrimental is that as I was pulling those screens down, dirt was falling down. And even after I cleaned them, I had to turn the system on very slowly. So I had someone on the roof, on the phone, turn it on, off. Turn it on, off. And then each time letting it run a little bit longer, and we were moving the dust that was built up in that unit slowly down, and I was watching it come down. I got to all of their hoods except for one. They have 1, 2, 3. Wait, 1, 2, 3. They have 4 hoods, individual hoods. And I could not get to the one on their fryer hood because there was no way for me to safely protect the fryer oil. God damn, I'm tired. It was an early morning today. We got up super early to go do an install of some bar reach-ins, so I'm tired. Been going since 4:15 this morning. And it's about 3:45 right now. But anyways, we cleaned them with the restaurant operational, but you have to understand when you are working on these restaurants, if you've ever had a makeup air unit that has been down for an extended period of time, makeup air units tend to collect a lot of dust. You don't want to turn them on when the restaurant's operational unless you do it in a controlled environment, because you're more than likely going to blow dust down into the building. So I was very careful to make sure that we turned it on very slowly, watching the dust and the dirt come down. We could not do it on the fryer because I couldn't safely get that one out while protecting the fryer oil. Everything else, they have like reach-in coolers and griddles and things. We were able to make sure they didn't have any food on the griddles, make sure the reach-in coolers were covered up, turn it on, wipe the griddle down, that kind of stuff. So you need to be aware. Don't just turn things on and hope for the best, because you can destroy the kitchen with dirt and dust and sand if you just blindly turn on a makeup air unit. Okay, that's my 2 cents on that one. Thank you so very much for making it to the end of the video. If you guys haven't already, please consider subscribing to this channel. I'd say a good probably 40 to 45% of you are not subscribed to this channel. I can see that you watch the videos. Please, it'll help out the channel. Subscribe. Plus, I'm just about to hit 200,000. I think I'm like 10,000, maybe 20,000 subs away, or I don't know, maybe even less than that, something like that. Help me push over that line for the 200,000 subs. It would really be much appreciated. Share these videos with anybody that you think would like them. Hopefully you learned something, or learned what not to do, or something like that, right? Again, excuse me, I keep yawning, but I'm tired. Good gosh. All right. If you haven't already, check out my website, HVACRvideos.com. We got merchandise available, such as these hats. Great way to help support the channel. We do it all in-house as of this moment right now. We have the merch made. We have it shipped to our home. We package it, clean it, inspect it, ship it out from our home. That's actually what my wife, Jill, HVACR wife, on social media, Instagram, if you want to give her a follow, she does that. She does all the merch, processes it. We have a I don't know, whatever. I can't think of the name of the website. But anyways, we have a website that does everything for us, has it all organized as a WordPress website with WooCommerce and all this different stuff. And it helps us to organize and get everything shipped out. So if you guys do purchase merch from the website, HVACRvideos.com, know that it does come from us. I am currently, right now, I have a pretty good stock, because before anything hit, I ordered a big stock of everything. I don't want to raise the prices just simply because I could, okay? So as of now, tariffs aren't affecting our prices as long as we're shipping within the United States, which I think we have Canada shipping actually turned off right now because that's been a dumpster fire too. But we're not going to raise the prices because of tariffs or anything like that until we have to make a reorder. I'm currently trying to source American-made hats. but I've yet to find this hat right here, which is the Cool and Dry Flex Fit. I've yet to find this one in an American-made brand. A lot of the American-made hats do not make this style of hat. If you guys know of any cool American-made hat designs or brands, shoot me an email, hvacrvideos@gmail.com. I believe currently right now we probably won't be hit too hard by the tariffs because I think the hats are made in Vietnam, I think. But anyways, you know, all good. But I don't plan on raising the prices until we have to make a reorder, and then obviously tariffs may apply or something like that. So I'm trying to do what I can. But knowing that all this stuff was happening, I did a big restock before any of this drama hit. So we should be doing pretty good. But, you know, I haven't checked the inventory levels lately. So anyways, hvacrvideos.com. You can also support the channel via PayPal, Patreon, YouTube channel memberships. There's links in the show notes of this video on YouTube on how to do those ones. Last but not least, you see any cool tools that I use in my videos, go check out TrueTechTools.com. I get a majority of my tools from them. I have an affiliate program set up with them. If you use my offer code BIGPICTURE, one word, at checkout, I get a small commission from that order. You get a nice discount on majority of the items on their website, and it's a great way to help support the channel. Again, TrueTechTools.com. Thank you so very much. I really do appreciate you, and we will catch you on the next one.